We've done all the patterns that use rotation, but not reflection, and we've done the 3 patterns using just reflection and no rotation. This is the first video where we build up floor patterns that use a mixture of both rotation and reflection. We're going to look at 2 hybrid patterns specifically. It's 2 star 2 2 and 4 star 2. I tried to do all 6 patterns at first and it turned out to be more than I could fit in one video. These 2 patterns I think should be an easier introduction because they're like kind of part of the same family as 2 of the reflection patterns we've already gone over. And then after I've done my best to explain that family relationship, I'll show a few of the prettier glazed terracotta floor patterns you can actually like build up using the new math information. There was one recent development since the last episode. There's actually more than 12 of these in Minecraft. In the real world, there's 17 different floor patterns, but 5 of them use hexagons or equilateral triangles, which I assumed you couldn't make because Minecraft is a grid of squares. But someone pointed out in a comment that a cube looks like a hexagon when you look at it from a certain angle. So I'll go into spectator mode to get rid of the shadow, and I think the best way to complete this illusion, is to change the field of view. And now you gotta try to trick your brain into seeing this as like a flat floor pattern instead of some kind of diagonal cube-bert staircase thing. Anyways, you can divide this surface up into triangles that have 3 lines of reflective symmetry meeting at each corner. So that pattern would be star 3 3 3, and then this pattern would be, I think, just 3 3 3. I think its fundamental like tile would be a diamond shape. In other words, there's actually a sense in which at least 14 of these floor patterns can be built in Minecraft. So one challenge for the rest of the series will be to see if we can make all 17 patterns, or like rigorously prove that the last 3 of them really can't be made in any way in Minecraft. So the 2 patterns we're going to look at today is 2 star 2 2 and 4 star 2. The easiest way I've found to think of them is almost as like 2 stepping stones on the way from star quadruple 2 to star 442. We're going to think of the process of creating a floor pattern as like doing origami with an infinitely wide sheet of paper. So it's a funny way to think about it, but imagine if you start with some, big flat sheet of paper. Maybe it's like just the size of a sports field or something. You cover it with random splatters of paint, you hit a bunch of people, you fold it in half, and you unfold it. And now the colors on opposite sides of that fold line are going to be the same, assuming you kind of like smush the colors together so they about even out. In other words, folding the big sheet of paper with wet paint on it is the same as introducing a reflective symmetry into that floor pattern. Similarly, if you had some rectangle of paper that you wanted to have rotational symmetry, you could kind of like cut through the middle, take the opposite side, spin it the right way, smush the 2 together, mix the paint, and then pull them apart. And then when you glue those smushed pieces back together the way they were, the new rectangle will have a rotational symmetry in it. So we're going to play a sort of game of elimination. We're going to start with an infinitely wide, randomly wet painted piece of paper. We're going to fold it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times until we've somehow magically turned the infinite sheet of paper into like a finite rectangle. It doesn't make sense, but that's the analogy for the math. And now we're going to take this rectangle, cut it, twist it, paste it together. And if we were to stop here and unfold it back into the full pattern, it would no longer be star quad 2, it would be 2 star 2 2. The reason it's named this, well, star quad 2, it's called that because it has 4 distinct corners, and each corner has 2 lines of reflective symmetry going through it, so 4 2s. Similarly, the pattern star 442 is called that because its fundamental region is a triangle. 2 corners have 4 lines of reflective symmetry and 1 has 2, so 442. Now we have patterns that have both points of like reflective symmetry and points of rotational symmetry. What we're going to do is we're going to list kind of the descriptions of the reflections after the star and the descriptions of the rotations before the star. For instance, here we've cut our rectangle in half, rotated it, squished it back together. The fundamental region now is one of those 2 halves that we cut apart and squished together. So it has 2 distinct points with reflective symmetry. Each one has 2 lines of reflective symmetry passing through it, hence the 2, 2 after the star. And there's a point that has twofold rotational symmetry, meaning you can spin it once and then twice and bring it back to where it was, hence the 2 in front of the star. So actually, before we even look at the next pattern, you can just look at the name 4 star 2, and that immediately tells you this pattern is going to have one point with 2 lines of reflective symmetry, and another point that has 4-fold rotational symmetry. So star quad 2, cut it in half, rotate and paste. We're going to take this fundamental pattern, cut it in half down the middle, rotate and paste. So specifically, if you take like these 4 points here and then, rotate it 90 degrees, it'll match up with these 4 points here. And sure enough, so now the fundamental region has one corner with 2 lines of reflective symmetry, and this opposite corner here has 4-fold rotational symmetry. A natural question to ask at this point is, well, if we were able to make this pattern by adding a cut to this one, if we were able to make this pattern by adding a cut to that one, what happens if we just keep making new cuts? For example, even on this floor tile here, what we could do is replace this blue concrete with a gray one, and now we've just added essentially another line of reflective symmetry. That's what I did here. I added that cut, worked out what floor pattern it would be, and it's star 442. So you could almost see this as like a family lineage where you have like the child, the parent, the grandparent, and the great-grandparent, which I guess means that star quad 2 is the great-grandparent of star 442. I've also marked out a single like fundamental tile on each of these regions, and it's cool. You can kind of see how even like the size of the tile got shaved down smaller and smaller. By the way, this is also one of the methods to prove that there's only 17 of these patterns. If you make enough new cuts, either reflective cuts or rotational cuts, eventually you're going to have to recreate one of the previous patterns on the list. In other words, I guess the family trees for these patterns oddly have like cycles in them. I'm not sure if I like this metaphor anymore. Anyways, if you can prove that, a new pattern will never appear further than, say, 10 cuts out, all you have to do then is at each point in the process kind of like list off all the different options you have at that point. And then I guess you do what would almost be in the metaphor genealogy, like you work out the family tree of all possible patterns. What's cool is if you keep this kind of folding origami metaphor in the back of your mind, it makes it easier to build up patterns as well. Right here specifically, we're just going to use the surface of the glazed lime terracotta block as the fundamental region. And we're going to do the 2 star 2 2 pattern. We'll undo the rotational fold first, and that just gets us one tile with 2 lime blocks kind of spun around a point in the middle here. And then we're gonna unfold the horizontal reflective lines first. And that's gonna almost give us a kind of like frieze or like molding pattern you see in fancy homes on the floor. And then finally, with this kind of like endless snake pattern, we're gonna unfold the horizontal lines of reflective symmetry. And sure enough, we get a perfectly good 2 star 2 2 pattern. I also did the 4 star 2 pattern. I used a 2x2 base tile for this to make sure I wasn't accidentally creating any extra symmetries. We take our 2x2 pattern here and then just kind of spin it 3 more times around in a full circle. And then unfolding this thing is pretty much the same as unfolding that. So first we unfold the vertical reflections, and then we unfold the horizontal reflections. And we get a perfectly good 4 star 2 pattern. Here's a point of 4-fold rotational symmetry, and then here's the point of 2-fold reflective symmetry, so reflection there and reflection there. I didn't like this one as much though, because from far away it just kind of looked like a square grid, like you couldn't see any more pattern than that. So I tried the exact same pattern with the exact same block, but just used a different like arrangement for the starting tile. And this one I think has a lot more personality, because you get both these kind of little like steering wheels and these wagon wheels here. And then exact same thing, unfold once, unfold twice, and then here's like the fundamental region that you just kind of slide, so you don't need to twist or flip it, you just kind of use it as a plain old tile. Yeah, and this pattern, this one came out a lot better, I think. It's much clearer that there's some kind of extra symmetry from further away. Lastly, if you look up these pattern names, so star quad 2, 442, whatever, outside of this video series, those names are all like labeled as the orbifold notation. This analogy is exactly why. In math terms, we'd say you're folding up the orbits of the points on the plane. And that's the fancy math word for like the magic paint that smushes together to the same color when you fold the paper up. I almost forgot, a couple weeks ago I posted this picture, so it was an attempt to create work by MC Escher, an artist, which used the 4-star 2 pattern in his work. He had a kind of tiled arrangement of angels and demons, so I tried to create like a little, I don't know, bat demon creature. So it's got 2 wings, these are supposed to be its eyes, and some kind of evil ear. The angels, I don't know, they have some kind of like arm hand dangles and some kind of wings. Here you can see the centers of the tips of the wings has 4-fold rotational symmetry. In fact, it almost looks like the bats are flying in a circle around it. The points where their feet all meet has reflective symmetry in 2 different directions. And sure enough, we can visualize the orbifold for this pattern right here. That's all I got this time. My name's Chris. Thanks for watching.